This is Jim Havens. Thank you for listening to the Station of the Cross, proclaiming the fullness of truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
C.J. Doyle today on The Simple Truth. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of St. Joseph. I'm your host, Jim Havens, and our guest today is C.J. Doyle, Executive Director of the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts, catholicactionleague.org. C.J., welcome back to The Simple Truth. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me. I'm always delighted to join you and your listeners, Jim.
Yes, it's great to have you back with us. Always a great blessing to have you here. And let's first begin with this ongoing saga in the Archdiocese of Boston. Tell us about this priest in the Archdiocese who replaced the Holy Family with an anti-ICE message in a nativity scene. First, what happened here? And then we can get into the response of the Archbishop and the Archdiocese.
Well, we have a dissident priest. By the way, the term dissident is a kind of anodyne post-conciliar term for heretic, We have this dissident priest, Father Stephen Josoma, who was removed by Cardinal Law years ago from a parish, St. Brendan's in Dorchester, reportedly after various accusations of same-sex behavior. And now he's a long history of dissent from Catholic teaching, had brought in different dissident speakers. At one point, Cardinal O'Malley stepped in and prevented him from having a Father Helmut Schuller, who was an Austrian priest, a notorious heretic, speaking at his parish. But he has a long history, Father Josoma, of kind of crackpot publicity stunts involving parish nativity scenes. We had a climate change nativity scene some years ago. We had a gun control nativity scene. We had another notorious one where during the first Trump administration, when there was an immigration crackdown, where you had baby Jesus in a cage to indicate that, ICE was imprisoning them. And now, this year, starting the beginning of December, he put up a nativity scene with the Holy Family removed, the figures of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph removed, and a sign, ICE was here, implying that ICE was so evil that they would have arrested the Holy Family. And then there was another smaller sign under it indicating to join one of these groups like ICE Watch, like this woman this unfortunate woman in Minneapolis was involved in, to let people know whether ICE was in their neighborhood so as to alert people to impede federal law enforcement. So a former parishioner of his had contacted us and also contacted local television. And I think it was the very beginning of December, might have been December the 1st. I was interviewed by the Fox News affiliate in Boston, WFXT Channel 25, and then that was picked up by Fox News nationally, and then it went to every Fox affiliate in the country, and then it was picked up by the wire services, by Associated Press, by the networks. It was in the British press, the Canadian press, the Australian press, went all over the country and all over the world, and within 4 days, the Archdiocese responded and said it was inappropriate to use devotional symbols for political purposes, and they called it a divisive political message, which was exactly what it was. It was arguably sacrilegious. It was also a totally inappropriate, disrespectful, divisive thing to do. This is a priest that has a long history of trying to impose his left-wing political ideology, promote it, and using his parish church as a kind of personal political soapbox. So Archbishop Henning on December the 4th ordered him to remove it. And instead of complying with the instruction of his archbishop, he decided it was the beginning of a negotiation, and then indicated that he wanted a meeting with the archbishop, and then they would then discuss what to do. Now, this is, of course, very common in the military, right? If you receive an order, you ask for a meeting with your superior officer, and then you work it out. This is, of course, this is a priest, by the way, who on the day of his ordination took a solemn promise on the altar of God of obedience to his ordinary and to their successors. So again, he's violating his ordination oath. He's compounding sacrilege with scandal, and he's engaged in open defiance of his archbishop. And apparently it paid off, because what happened is there was silence from the Archdiocese after his defiance. And then just before Christmas, the Archdiocese announced that Archbishop Henning would meet with him sometime in January. which meant the offending nativity scene with its political message would remain up through the 12 days of Christmas. And then nothing, there was without consequence to this priest who again committed, exploited Christmas, politicized the Holy Family, and defied his archbishop. So the nativity scene was actually taken down on the afternoon of the Epiphany because, modernists don't celebrate the entire season of Christmas the way traditional Catholics do. And thus far, to our knowledge, there's been nothing in the press. There's been no meeting between him and the archbishop yet, as far as we know, and certainly there's been no public consequences. The Archdiocese of Boston is a corporation sole, so the archbishop is not only his superior and his employer, he's his landlord. An archbishop in Boston can not only remove pastors under canon law for cause, but he can suppress parishes, he can close churches, and in this case, he can sell the property. He's the owner of the property. He can sell the property right out from under them. So there's been absolutely no consequence. And of course, the Boston Globe resumed its war against Catholicism as a result of this incident. We had two columns from this dissident Kevin Cullen, and another column from this apostate ex-Catholic Joan Vanocchi, and a whole series of letters to the editor. And the Globe, since the sexual abuse crisis of 2002, the Globe treats the Catholic Church as a defeated enemy. And things like Weimar Germany, it must be subject to intervention and to rebuke by the victorious powers. So apparently, Archbishop Henning, in suggesting that this was inappropriate, violated the armistice. So the Globe has gone back to work maligning the Catholic Church in its long 50-year war against Catholicism. But it's very disappointing. Archbishop Henning actually did something unlike his predecessor, Cardinal O'Malley, who tolerated this for years. And then as soon as the heat was turned on from the media, promptly backed down. Very sad.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but we appreciate your good reporting on all of this. And I've been following that reporting, and very objective, very fair. I mean, you wrote after the initial the initial response by the Archdiocese and the Archbishop that said the display should be removed, the manger restored to its proper sacred purpose. You reported in that article on that the Archdiocese of Boston should be commended for doing the right thing. And you had other good things to say there about Archbishop Henning in regard to that. And so that was back on December 5th. Unfortunately, they never followed through and did anything further here. And there was also another incident that you report on related to this, that it sounds like maybe there were about 6 or 7 people that decided they just wanted to go there and pray the rosary, and they had the police called on them by this priest and his secretary. Can you tell us more about that?
A group of faithful Catholics, they weren't connected with us, they just did this spontaneously, decided to go and as a reparation to this sacrilege and scandal, decided to pray the rosary. And they didn't wish to trespass on church property, so they gathered on a traffic island at the intersection in front of Saint Susanna's Church, which is in Dedham, Massachusetts. And next thing you know, the police showed up. Apparently, the traffic island is owned by the church. And the police, by the way, the Dedham police are very courteous, very professional. They said that the parish secretary called and demanded that they be removed. Now, think about the irony of this for a second, Jim. Here's people who think that foreigners should be able to invade and colonize the United States without consequence. But if somebody enters onto their property, they immediately call the police to evict them. This is a priest who all talks about we have to have empathy and we have to have tolerance and we have to have forbearance towards migrants, but apparently no empathy or forbearance or tolerance towards their fellow Catholics. The same people that want to stop ICE, in this case, their mantra was call the cops.
Unbelievable. And also, I mean, from what you already shared about this priest, this dissenting priest here, that he seems to be somebody that should not be in active ministry to begin with, based on his history. So it seems to be spiritual abuse to begin with. he is even there being allowed to actively minister to people. I mean, imagine what he's saying to people in the confessional if he's dissenting from the church's essential teaching on morals, magisterial teachings on faith and morals. What is his preaching? What is his teaching to the folks there at the parish? It seems like he's giving a malformation, not a good formation to people. And I would think that would be something that Archbishop Henning would be very concerned about. Has there been any sort of pushback besides just yourself and the Catholic League of Massachusetts here? Have you seen people from the parish? I guess people who go to the parish must like him, but because they're going there. But I don't know. Has there been any pushback, any reaction from others?
Oh yes. We were involved with this. Two of his parishioners, or should I say ex-parishioners, had contacted us, and they're very upset over this. And they basically tell us that he's running kind of an independent church, a parish church independent of the Catholic Church and independent of the Archdiocese of Boston. Or the Archdiocese apparently is still paying a salary. We had one former parishioner said that he spoke to him years ago and accused him of this, that you're running really a church, that's independent from the rest of the Catholic Church. And he said, Father Josoma's response was, well, will you join me? So this, again, is a priest that has a long history of rejectionism. Cardinal Law, who was much maligned, had actually cared enough for the spiritual welfare of the people under Josoma's charge that he removed him years ago from St. Brendan's in Dorchester. But like many other dissident priests, Cardinal O'Malley put him back into a position of authority.
Well, C.J. Doyle, you're doing great work here on this and many other things. We're going to get to some other aspects of your recent reporting and the good fruits that those reports have had, which is a blessing to see. And we're going to learn more ourselves for our own edification in the process. We are going to stick with this story just a little bit longer because there is a double standard that C.J. does mention on this whole episode with this Father Maloney. So we're going to talk about that double standard and just kick that around a bit. And we'll wrap that up. We'll get into some other things. But you gotta, if you're not following CJ Doyle's reporting at CatholicActionLeague.org, you need to. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
Tired of your phone bills supporting who knows what? iCatholic Mobile is a 5G provider that supports what matters to you. With iCatholic Mobile, every call, text, and even that group chat you can't escape helps support the Station of the Cross. It's a network that connects you to what's good for both your soul and your wallet. More information is available at iCatholicMobile.com. iCatholic Mobile underwrites with the Station of the Cross.
Hear what our listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio mobile app.
iCatholic Radio is the most truthful and important site that any of us could ever listen to today. We get the truth. We get good people telling us what is going on in the world. Thank you so much. It's a gift from God.
Download the free iCatholic Radio mobile app today on your Android or Apple mobile device.
A prayer to the Sacred Heart that St. Gertrude the Great wrote. I salute thee, O Sacred Heart of Jesus, living and vivifying source of eternal life, infinite treasure of the divinity, ardent furnace of divine love. Thou art the place of my repose and my refuge. Enkindle in my heart the fire of that ardent love with which thine own is inflamed. Pour into my heart the great graces of which thine is the source, and grant that my heart may be so closely united to thine, that thy will may be mine, and that my will may be eternally conformed to thine, since I desire that henceforth thy holy will may be the rule of all my desires and all my actions. Amen.
To the Simple Truth Jim Haven Conversations here with C.J. Doyle, Executive Director of the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts, CatholicActionLeague.org. We're going to get right back with C.J. in a moment. But first, if you are buying or selling a home, there's an easy way to help the Station of the Cross at the same time. Real Estate for Life has 1,400 experienced, morally grounded agents in the U.S. and Canada. Visit realestateforlife.org to find a Christ-centered, experienced realtor near you. And don't forget to mention the Station of the Cross. All right, CJ, just one last point on your reporting regarding this dissenting priest in the Archdiocese of Boston who replaced the Holy Family with this anti-ICE message in a nativity scene. And then when he was told to take it down from the Archdiocese, he refused to obey. He refused that order, and he kept it up and demanded a meeting. We don't know if that meeting is taking place. No follow-up on that to this point. But you mentioned in your reporting, I think it's important to point this out, this double standard. You found a pretty good example of it with this case of Father Maloney. Can you tell us about that?
Father Daniel Maloney was the Catholic chaplain at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute for Technology. And during the George Floyd controversy and the riots and all of the demonstrations, he came up with a very thoughtful, very considered, very low-key statement where he said that we can't say with absolute certitude yet. But again, by the way, this is America. We have the presumption of innocence. This is before any trials or any findings. He said we can't say with absolute certitude that racism played a part in the death of George Floyd. And he also pointed out that George Floyd may have had some responsibility for what happened to him in the sense that he had not led a virtuous life. No one can argue with this. These are unassailable facts. And for this, he was subjected to a kind of electronic lynching at MIT. They demanded he be immediately removed because he was a racist or he was an enabler of racism. And Cardinal O'Malley fired him within 48 hours. And not only fired him, but issued a statement condemning his remarks. In other words, Cardinal O'Malley issued a statement condemning a priest for telling the truth. So this was absolutely outrageous, and he's now he's left the Archdiocese of Boston. I think he's somewhere in the Midwest. I don't know if he's still incardinated in the Archdiocese, but what a terrible thing to do to a priest who was trying his best to be not to be reckless, but to be thoughtful and considerate, and to come up with a statement that did not demonize law enforcement. And this is what happened to him. And contrast that to Josoma, who has a long history, again, of crackpot political stunts, of using his parish church as his personal political soapbox, and other dissident priests. You're not going to believe this, Jim, but we have a retired Monsignor Garrity, used to be the pastor of St. Catherine's in Norwood, which was at one time a very conservative parish. He writes for a newspaper called the Lynn Item, and he not only suggested that Joe Biden was pro-life, but he suggested that someday the Catholic Church would, I kid you not, canonize Joe Biden as a saint. Absolutely nothing has happened to Monsignor Garrity for this kind of, malign absurdities that he spouts. And he goes on, and again, there's no rebuke. There's no, at the time when he said Joe Biden was pro-life, there was some kind of clarification from the Archdiocese, but there was certainly no punishment for Monsignor Garrity, and his most recent one about canonizing this absurd idiocy, canonizing Joe Biden, that brought no rebuke from the Archdiocese. So there's a very, very clear double standard here. The double standard seems to be no enemies to the left. If you are a dissident priest, if you're a heretic, if you're a supporter of homosexuality or abortion or population control, nothing happens to you. But in the case of Father Maloney, who merely tried to be thoughtful and merely tried to be restrained at a time when people were engaged in very reckless and demagogic rhetoric, he was bounced in a heartbeat.
Yeah, certainly is a double standard, and makes me think of an example that would also be interesting to consider, and that would be, what if there was a priest who decided to do something, I guess, similar, make a statement with a nativity scene. Now, I would think that any statement besides just being reverent and focusing on the beauty of the nativity scene and the Holy Family and our Lord Jesus, anything other than that would be inappropriate. But imagine if a priest wanted to send a pro-life message with the nativity scene, similar to what this priest has done with this anti-ICE message, imagine if they removed the baby Jesus from the scene and they just put a sign saying Planned Parenthood was here or something like that. Now, I would say that would be inappropriate, shouldn't be done. But if somebody did do that, do you think that the Archdiocese would have a different response? What do you think that they would do in that case?
Well, again, the whole history of the Archdiocese is persecuting anyone who is perceived to be a dissident on the right, while enabling and empowering and tolerating anyone who's a dissident on the left. You know, we had a friend of Father Josoma's, Father Ron Coyne, who again was removed by Cardinal Law, later became a pastor under Cardinal O'Malley. He told Catholics they don't have to go to confession because, and he said, because Satan doesn't exist, and evil is, apparently an entirely relative matter. So here's a priest that's encouraging people, not to avail themselves of the sacrament of penance, of the sacrament of reconciliation, not to save the highest law of the church is the salvation of souls. Priests are supposed to be zealous for souls. Here's a priest telling his parishioners exactly the opposite. And did anything happen to him? No, nothing. The Archdiocese never does anything to restrain these heretics and these dissenters. And of course, the Archdiocese, since the resignation of Cardinal Law and since the sexual abuse scandal, the Archdiocese seems, the constituencies of the Archdiocese seems to be Boston's corporate class, its media, and its pro-abortion political establishment, which it does everything possible to ingratiate itself with. So I think Father Brian Hare, another dissident who is still the Secretary of Health and Social Services for the Archdiocese, said after the Cardinal Law's resignation, we have to rebuild trust with civil society, meaning, of course, corporate and political and media elites.
Well, it's important to be aware of all of this and for the faithful to know where to go, where the good, faithful priests are in the Archdiocese. And we're very grateful for those good and faithful priests throughout the Archdiocese of Boston. Keep supporting them and praying for them and building up those good parishes. Hopefully, the Archbishop will get a grasp of all of this and start to make the corrections that are needed. So keep the prayers going for Archbishop Henning. CJ, you also had some really good success here with your work regarding this reporting. You have an article here: bar owner relents, will not use name of Virgin Mary for pub. What happened here?
A bar owner purchased a tavern. You know, in Boston, liquor licenses are extreme, like taxi medallions are extremely expensive. They're running to hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And a bar owner purchased a closed tavern and its liquor license in South Boston, and decided to name the bar the quote-unquote the Hail Mary. And then when he was called on this by various members of the South Boston Catholic community and others, he insisted it was just a sports reference. We didn't mean it, nothing religious about it, just a reference to Doug Flutie's famous pass, which some media nitwit called the Hail Mary pass. So a couple of priests contacted us. And a number of people in South Boston, were very upset about this. And I attended it was a Zoom meeting, a community meeting on this, and I spoke against this. And a number of other people in South Boston spoke against this. And the attorney for the bar owner kept insisting, no. But we mean no disrespect. It was just, again, a sports reference. And we told him whatever the intention of the bar owner was, it's entirely inappropriate, sacrilegious, disrespectful to use the name of the Blessed Virgin Mary to promote a tavern. So he said he'd get back to us, and he indicated, this is the attorney now, indicating that they might change the name. So they did change the name, but they changed it to the Queen of the May, another reference to the Blessed Mother. So is this guy just being stubborn, or does he have some kind of occultic obsession with the Blessed Virgin Mary? So again, there was more protest and more objection from the South Boston community, and eventually, and some of the politicians began leaning on him on the licensing board. You have to have an approval by the zoning board, by the licensing board of the city of Boston for these things. And eventually, he agreed to change it to, I think it was Mother's East Tavern or something like that, but no reference to the Blessed Mother. But, it's extraordinary. I mean, this is, again, the League spoke out about this, and we tried to gain some publicity for it. Again, the Archdiocese was silent, apparently, though a couple of priests that were friendly towards us had contacted us to let us know about it. And eventually it was really changed because of the objection of the South Boston community, because the South Boston community leaned on some of the politicians, and also because of the publicity generated, by the Catholic Action League. But this is just, very, very disturbing. The late, liberal talk show host Jerry Williams said that when he began in Boston in the 1950s, you could not criticize the Catholic Church. It was simply, it was verboten. And he's now, here we are 65 years later, 70 years later, and any crackpot can insult us with impunity. I mean, it really speaks to the loss of numbers, reputation, moral influence and political clout that's happened partly as a result of the post-conciliar collapse of the church, and also because of all the scandals regarding sexual predation, among the clergy. It's very, very sad. This was a city that was once 72% Catholic, and now it's Catholics are a minority in Boston, and there's not a single elected. Let me just say that very carefully. There's not a single elected politician on the federal, state, county, or local level that reflects Catholic teaching. They're all liberals. They're all dissidents. They're all for abortion and sodomy. So and they're against school choice, and they're for population control. So here, we're really kind of living in Third Republic France, or Savoyard Italy, or PRI Mexico, where you have large numbers of baptized Catholics, but absolutely zero political influence, and not a single member of the political class that supports the Catholic faith.
Yeah, what an absolute shame. Again, you can learn more about all the reporting here that CJ Doyle is telling us about, and much more at CatholicActionLeague.org. And yeah, I mean, as you paint the picture there of the current state of affairs on the ground in the Archdiocese of Boston, you would think that all would have been taken into account when it comes to appointing a new bishop, a new archbishop. It sounds like, as you paint the picture, what is needed is a real prophetic voice, somebody who's really going to come in and be a witness to the faith, and be to the point of paying the price, being willing to be a martyr for it. Now that should go for any bishop in any office that is holding the office of bishop. That's part of what it means. But yeah, I don't know. Again, keep the prayers going for Archbishop Henning. But the Archdiocese of Boston, we really need a witness of the faith to call people back to faith. Anything further on that, CJ?
Well, the episcopal selection process in the Catholic Church is okay. We don't know what happened, but from what our understanding, what reports were, the choice, believe it or not, was between Henning and McElroy. Some progressives in the Catholic Church thought O'Malley was insufficiently progressive and wanted, McElroy to come to Boston, Cardinal McElroy. And apparently Henning was Cardinal O'Malley's personal choice. He had been briefly the Bishop of Providence, a New England, diocese. So that was so it's somebody who's extremely liberal and somebody who's moderately liberal. That was the choice.
Yeah. Well, keep the prayers going again, Archbishop Henning, and keep supporting the good work that is being done there in the Archdiocese of Boston. We support the Archbishop, and we always want to be open and ready to serve in any way that we can. But we need the faith proclaimed well, and there's a great opportunity there in Boston. There's still that cultural sense of Catholicism, even if there's a lot of unfaithfulness towards it. People can be called back if they have a good witness. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
I think we have to go into prayer knowing that we're being contested for.
Oh, yes. If we didn't have guardian angels guarding us, we would be suckers and losers infallibly to immensely superior forces. The devil's terrified of prayer.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Atheists claim theists are essentially no different than atheists because we reject gods too, such as Greek and Roman gods. But this is plain absurdity. What's our reason? First, it's an abuse of language. A theist believes in at least one God. An atheist doesn't believe in any God. They're mutually exclusive terms. To say a theist is an atheist to most gods is like saying a married man is a bachelor to most women. Second, it's bad reasoning. To say I'm an atheist because I reject some gods is like saying I'm an anarchist, one who rejects all forms of government because I reject communism and fascism, some forms of government. But that's silly. So the claim that atheists and theists are no different doesn't hold water. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
With praise let us awake the dawn.
Start your day off right with prayer and reflection.
Have mercy on me, God, have mercy.
Join the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 5 a.m. for the Office of Readings, Lauds, and the Holy Rosary. That's weekday mornings at 5 a.m. Eastern.
I call to God the Most High, to God who has always been my help.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, CJ Doyle. You can follow his good work over at CatholicActionLeague.org. CJ, tell us about your reporting on this story, Quincy Saint statues under attack from the ACLU. What's going on here?
We have an elected official in the city of Quincy, which is a city of about 100,000 people southeast of Boston, on Boston's South Shore, the so-called Irish Riviera, who is actually a practicing Catholic, Thomas Koch. And he's a social conservative, and he actually got in trouble recently because he committed the blasphemy of actually suggesting that same-sex attraction had something to do with the molestation of minors in the Catholic Church. He was nearly lynched for that. But he is they're erecting a new public safety headquarters for the police and fire departments in Quincy, and they thought they'd have the patron saints of policemen and firemen. That Saint Michael the Archangel is the patron saint of policemen. Saint Florian is the patron saint of firemen. We have here in Boston something called Florian Hall, and that's the union headquarters of the Firefighters Association. And we have an order of Saint Michael and Saint Florian that's given out by various nonprofits to policemen and firefighters. My uncle was a longtime member of the Boston Fire Department, the late John F. Doyle. He was a member of the arson squad, and so there is this devotion, and it's part of the culture of policemen and firemen to honor Saint Michael and to honor Saint Florian. And of course, this is not a sectarian thing. The Saint Michael the Archangel is part of the liturgical calendar of the Eastern Orthodox Church, of the Oriental Orthodox Church, of the Anglican Church, of the Lutheran Church. So of course, the usual suspects who were hostile to anything conservative or Christian immediately attacked the idea of having statues of patron saints at a public building, saying it was inappropriate. And they actually sued the city of Quincy, and it went before a judge appointed by our a liberal Massachusetts governor. And this was and the judge immediately said, "Oh, this is unlikely to the plaintiffs are likely to prevail," and enjoined the erection of these statues. But of course, the plaintiffs are three anti-Catholic hate groups: the American Civil Liberties Union, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Now, the ACLU, obviously, people know about. It's a group that, among other things, tries to compel Catholic hospitals to perform abortions, to perform tubal ligations, to perform sterilizations, force Catholic schools to hire, active civilly married homosexuals. But the other two groups are perhaps less known, but they're just as toxic. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is a fanatically anti-Christian organization. It opposes chaplaincy services for the armed forces and for veterans hospitals. It opposes any kind of nativity scenes on public property. It opposes conscience protections for Christians. It actually has a program designed to lure Christian ministers out of their ministry and transition them into supporting atheism. And of course, Americans for the separation of church and state used to be Protestants and other Americans united for the separation of church and state, which Boston's Cardinal Cushing, the late Archbishop of Boston, called a refined version of the Ku Klux Klan. And this, of course, has a long, long history of anti-Catholicism. This was a group, and even the Washington Post reported on this. Americans United for the Separation of Church and State has, among other things, tried to have Catholic cardinals stripped of their citizenship for the crime of violating federal law by voting in a foreign election, the foreign election being the election of the Pope. It attacked former U.S. House Speaker John McCormick years ago for receiving a papal award. It demanded that during the McCarthy period that the House Un-American Activities Committee investigate Vatican espionage in the United States. And of course, it's had a lifelong obsession, multi-generational obsession, of stopping any kind of state aid to Catholic schools. So 3 hate groups, basically, the ACLU, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and Americans United for the Separation of Church and State are suing the city of Quincy on this. Now, there's been some pushback. A number of people in Quincy mounted a demonstration a couple of weeks ago in favor of the saint statues. The police and firefighter unions are supporting it. And of course, the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty has come in to represent the city in these court cases. But I mean, this is again, not all fundamentalism is religious. There's also secular fundamentalists, and public art has always been religious art has always been part of public buildings. The Boston Public Library, which is a kind of bastion of Brahmin Yankeedom, the magnificent McKim building, this Beaux Arts building built in the 1890s, has a whole series of religious murals, including one celebrating the mysteries of the Rosary. Very unusual for a Protestant establishment from more than a century ago. The Massachusetts State House has a mural in its memorial hall of John Eliot preaching to the Indians. It also has a chaplain's memorial. The U.S. Capitol, the U.S. Supreme Court, the Cambridge Public Library, Newton City Hall. There are numerous examples of religious art in public buildings. I think the Public Library in Lexington has a bust of Theodore Parker. For people who are not familiar, Theodore Parker was the Unitarian minister who spent much of his ministry denouncing Catholics and Irish Catholics in particular. So we have the grim-visaged bust of a bigot in a public library in Lexington, but we can't have the benign image of 2 saints on a public building in Quincy. Again, it's a double standard. It's an example of the hypocrisy of the left.
So this is currently in the courts. Is the project able to move forward in the meantime, or is it paused? What do you know where this stands currently?
Well, the judge, this Judge Sullivan, this Superior Court judge, enjoined it, so they can't go forward with the placement of the staff, which have already been constructed and paid for. But that he can't go forward and place them according to this injunction of the judge. So the Becket Fund is appealing to the SJC, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, for relief in this matter. So it'll be up to the now this is of course the same court that invented a right to same-sex marriage in 2003. So I don't know how confident we can be there. But they have appealed to the Supreme Judicial Court, and it will be litigated there. And the Quincy will be represented by a high-profile and very capable religious freedom advocacy group, the Becket Fund.
If it doesn't go the way of the Becket Fund and the mayor here, potential for appeal to the Supreme Court on something like this?
I suppose it's possible. Again, it's hardly unknown having religious art in public buildings. The idea there's some black and white line here is ludicrous. It's public buildings all throughout America have the Cambridge Public Library. Here's Blue Cambridge, one of the most progressive cities in the country, and they have the writings of St. Paul up on a mural. They have the 10 Commandments, the Decalogue up on a mural. It was a very common thing years ago to have kind of religious exhortations and religious images on public buildings. The idea that the separation of church and state meant that there was no one single established church. It didn't mean the separation of church and state did not mean the separation religion from civil society.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if we go back to the founding, it's clear that there is a certain religious sense that this nation has been clearly founded upon, and that also ought to have a certain primacy. I mean, we do have God invoked in the Constitution, our supreme law. So it's hard to believe that that folks can just come in and try to interpret things in such a way to say that we have to have this absolute secularism that just takes out everything that is related to God in any way or religion in any way. But we do see a lot of advances by, I would call it all part of the culture of death here, the dictatorship of relativism, as Pope Benedict XVI talked about. Anything, I guess, in general you'd want to say just on this topic overall as we continue to see this advance of the culture of death, of this absolute secularism?
I think you put it well, Jim. Again, it's a fanaticism, it's an extremism, it's an absolutism. You know, the fellow that came up, that authored the title, The Wall of Separation Between Church and State, was Thomas Jefferson, whose administration paid for Indians, for Catholic chaplains to minister and educate Indians. So apparently the fellow that authored this phrase did not believe that it was absolute. You know, obviously we have in God we trust on the coinage. We always had chaplains for the Supreme Court and for both houses of Congress. Massachusetts has chaplains for its state legislature. There are chaplains for the Boston Police Department and the Boston Fire Department. It has never been, even France, which is, you know, a state that is officially laic, which is officially secular, gives aid to parochial schools more generously than the United States does. And of course, has always had chaplaincy services for its armed forces. So again, these are just fanatics and bigots who are hiding behind the Constitution to promulgate and persecute people for their sincerely held Christian religious beliefs. This has never been the case in American history that religion should be entirely separated from the rest of society. Again, the Establishment Clause was limited to preventing a state church like we had. And by the way, when the Establishment Clause was passed, in the First Amendment in 1791, we had Massachusetts had a state religion. It publicly subsidized congregational churches. The New England states had congregational establishments. The Middle Atlantic states and the Southern states had Anglican establishments. So we had state churches, in Massachusetts, the Congregational Church was the established church until 1833. So taxpayers paid their money to support congregational ministers, who also who served as ministers and preachers on Sunday and school teachers the rest of the week. So again, there has never been this absolute separation, and these groups that are doing this are just bigots and hate groups who want to kind of ethnically cleanse Christianity from the public square.
A related aspect to this in your most recent reporting here at CatholicActionLeague.org, this story: bill filed in Arizona to impose jail time for priests who refuse to violate the seal of the confessional. Now, we see this sort of thing. This has popped up before elsewhere, but tell us about this story taking place in Arizona.
Well, a bill has been filed by the Democratic minority whip in the Arizona House of Representatives to imprison priests or give them very onerous six-figure criminal fines for refusing to violate the seal of the confessional in cases of sexual abuse. Now, this law, a similar law to this, was just struck down by a federal district court in Montana, and the Trump Department of Justice intervened and is investigating this and is calling for sanctions against any state that does this for violating the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In the case of Arizona, this Democratic minority whip, a woman named Stacey Travers, is a hard leftist. She's been endorsed by Emily's List and Stonewall Democrats and, various other, pro-abortion, pro-homosexual groups. She has filed bills and sponsored bills to end Arizona's former ban on, 15-week ban on abortions, to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, to prohibit conversion therapy, to erase conscience protections for people, in the provision of contraceptives. So this is, again, an attack by the hard political left against religious freedom rights.
We're going to be back with C.J. Doyle. We're going to talk more about this. The importance of the seal of the confessional. Why do we have it, right? It might be obvious to you, but maybe not to some others. And I do think there's something that, I can kind of understand here, where there are folks that are outside of the Catholic faith. They don't understand the sacramental life. They hate child abuse. They hate, these criminals that, and to think that they're confessing to somebody, but then that can't be reported, I can understand they would have a problem with that. It seems to me what they're missing is that what understanding the sacramental life, the seal of the confessional. We're going to get into that when we get back. Stay tuned.
Hello, this is Father Jim Netto of the Diocese of Portland, Maine. In Krakow, Poland on the 2nd of June, 1938, the Lord Jesus himself directed a young Polish Sister of Mercy on a 3-day retreat. Sister Faustina painstakingly recorded Christ's instructions in her diary, that is, a mystical manual on prayer and divine mercy. These instructions became Faustina's weapon in fighting the good fight. Jesus began, "My daughter, I want to teach you about spiritual warfare." Secret number 12. If someone causes you trouble, think of what good you can do for the person who caused you to suffer. In this secret, Jesus reminds us that being a vessel of divine mercy is a weapon for good and for defeating evil. The devil is about hatred, rage, revenge, and unforgiveness. Others have hurt us at different times. What good can we do in return? Returning a blessing breaks curses. We must not allow charity to suffer as a result of what others have done to us. Penance is, in any case, to be judged more by what it gains than what it renounces. If Christ is the way, we Christians are on the way. We are followers, moreover, in cross-bearing. We come behind him. Identification with Christ's passion is an idea that the mind can grasp. Thus, in the wounds others place upon us, we can find our trust for eternal life. Our wounds can become our merits. The identification is with Christ and his cross. May we always take advantage of the crosses sent to us, and from them may we bring light into darkness and ultimately life into death.
The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, C.J. Doyle, Executive Director of the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts, founded in 1995, CatholicActionLeague.org. Going to get right back with C.J. in a moment, but first, don't forget about iCatholic Mobile for your mobile phone needs. When you subscribe to iCatholic Mobile, you do help fund the Station of the Cross. Check out iCatholic Mobile, iCatholicMobile.com. All right, back to this story on this bill filed in Arizona to impose jail time for priests who refuse to violate the seal of the confessional. So I agree with your reporting, CJ. When one understands what we're talking about here, it is clear that any effort to violate the seal will be regarded as nothing less than an attempt to criminalize Catholicism, which will be resisted by all appropriate means. End of quote. I agree with that. At the same time, is it possible that somebody could be of good faith and be thinking, I'm sympathetic to the argument if it were made by somebody of good faith, which is a big if, I suppose, when talking about these things. But if somebody has the argument, they're just thinking of the Catholic Church as just any other organization, they're not understanding the sacramental life. They say, hey, if there is a sexual abuser of children that is going in and confessing their crime to somebody, well, they have to, by law, report that. And I have a problem if they don't. Well, that makes sense, right, on its face in any ordinary circumstance, but not in this circumstance. This is a very special circumstance that has to do with the seal of the confessional and understanding what that means. Can you share with us more about maybe somebody listening who doesn't really understand the seal of the confessional, the sacramental life? Share with them why that is special and why that is not to be violated.
Well, I think a part of this, of course, is ignorance. People don't realize that, the sacrament of penance is anonymous. I mean, what's the priest supposed to say? The guy had a gravelly voice. I smell cigarette smoke. They don't. The penitent and the confessor usually don't see one another. They're behind the screen, or they're in separate rooms. In St. Francis Chapel in Boston, the confessor is actually in another room, and there's a kneeler and a screen and a kind of a little sliding door where the confessional is. So, first of all, it's anonymous. The priest has no idea who the person is who's confessing to him. Second of all, they don't understand that the priest can withhold absolution unless there's firm resolution of amendment, and therefore, it isn't a case of somebody going in and confessing their sins and then being, enabled or empowered to go out and commit the same sins over and over again. Also, how do you enforce this? I mean, this is the only way to enforce this is through entrapment, by sending undercover police agents in and making false confessions. And, this is one of the things the British did in Ireland, one of the things they did in Nazi Germany. It's also ripe for abuse. I mean, think some convicted sexual offender could invent the claim that he confessed to a priest and then offer to testify against the priest to get his sentence reduced. Professor Jonathan Turley, the distinguished legal scholar, said that any coerced confession from a priest would be useless in court anyways, unless he gave the penitent a Miranda warning. So this is really, I don't think this really is in good faith. I think this is just people who hate the Catholic Church and who hate what it stands for in terms of traditional morality. And this is just an excuse to embarrass it and to persecute it. Certainly, this Stacey Travers, this state rep in Arizona, said the church is hiding behind the confessional. Well, what's it hiding? What's the theory? Sociopaths who molest children are going in and confessing their sins and then being empowered somehow to go out and confess them again. The priests are supposed to, suffer death rather than violate the seal of the confessional. And that statement that you quoted from me, we said that the practice of the sacrament of penance is indispensably necessary to the practice of Catholicism, and that the seal of the confessional is integral to the administration of the sacrament. So you're talking about, again, essentially criminalizing Catholicism if you force priests to break the seal, and this has been again abused in this is it was notoriously abused attempts by the British. You actually had not only British agents going into the confessional, you actually had British agents removing the priest and hearing confessions or pretending to hear confessions from Irish rebels to see if they can find something incriminating. Of course, you had this also going on in Nazi Germany and other places. So this is something that we, as Catholics, we don't believe in the supremacy of civil law. There is no absolutism of the authority of the state. There are limits here, and this is one of those limits. The laws of man cannot supersede the laws of God.
Yes, yeah, well said. Many good points there brought up, and there's a sacredness and something very special about this sacrament, where you're talking to the person of Jesus in the priest. In persona Christi is the state of the priest here, and you are confessing your sins in this way that you can be sure is not going to be repeated. It is interesting when you try to bring up like the practical situation here. Why would even somebody be going in there, confessing these things. If they're like this, this serial abuser looking to go out and do it again, that wouldn't really be happening. What would be happening is if someone is truly repentant, and what would happen in that case is the priest would probably even advise such a person to turn themselves in if they've broken the law and have done something terrible. And that would be up to the person to follow up and do. But this is something that is really a non-issue. And so that's why I think you can look at this and say it's not being done in good faith. I think you're right. This could lead to entrapment and various things that would just be criminalizing Catholicism. So you're right to definitely raise a major red flag on this. And I thank you for doing so. At the same time, I do want to make clear, if it's outside of the confessional and a priest somehow comes into knowledge, if somebody tells them or if they know, even if it's another priest, even if it's anybody who they know is committing a crime of abuse against anybody, including abuse against a minor, well, they do have a responsibility at that point to report that. And so can you just speak to that, I guess, just to make sure that is clear to everybody, that there's nothing untoward here. We all ought to be on the side of reporting anything that we know that is against the law that is going on, especially against children. And there's been a bad record in the Catholic Church on this in recent times to some degree, and that is something that the Church has to actually be very clear about, that was wrong and that can never be done again. But that was outside of the faith. That's not people being faithful. What it is to be a faithful Catholic would be to report those things, not be putting priests back into active ministry, but to be taking them out and having them prosecuted if they have violated the law. CJ.
Well, clearly, I mean, Catholic priests, Catholic deacons, Catholic lay catechists, parochial school teachers, anyone that deals with children is basically a mandatory reporter at this point regarding sexual abuse, and that's only correct. And the Church itself, insists that they report to civil authorities, and people who engage in these things should obviously. I mean, this is demonic. This idea of an adult molesting a child. They should go to prison for the rest of their lives. So no one is objecting to reporting cases of sexual abuse. But I mean, the idea that you have to violate the seal of the confessional. I mean, the premise here is a fact-free assertion. No one knows that serial sexual abuse has ever gone to confession to confess that sin ever. There's no way of knowing that. And again, it's just an assertion by people on the political left who want to embarrass the Catholic Church. I think their motives are their methods are very cynical, and their motives are malicious and punitive.
Yes. Great reporting by C.J. Doyle, Catholic Action League of Massachusetts, CatholicActionLeague.org. C.J., really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time coming on, and thank you for all the good work that you do. Just very, very grateful for you.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a wonderful program you've had. You had a great apostolate and brought up many, many important Catholic issues and informed the Catholic people of them. So I wish you the best of luck with your new career, and I just commend you for all you've done with this program.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, C.J. Doyle, CatholicActionLeague.org. God bless you.